Hey guys, today we'll be doing unit 4.1. It's about biological molecules. So, list the chemical elements that make up. Okay, here. List the chemical elements that make up carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. That's the first thing we're going to be doing. Okay. Now, the three things we have to talk about are carbohydrates, lipids. Lipids can also be called fats or oils, and proteins. Okay, so lipids can also be called fats or oils. Okay, so the chemical elements that make up carbohydrates are here. Carbon, hydrogen. So basically just CHO. So CHO. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now lipids or fats and oils, it's the same thing. CHO. The last thing is proteins. Proteins, it's the only one that contains sulfur. Okay, so it's it's the only one that contains nitrogen. The only one that contains nitrogen. It sometimes contains sulfur and phosphorus. So it's the only one. It's the only biological molecule that contains nitrogen. So these are the three main biological molecules. Three main biological molecules. Okay. Now you can either screenshot this or write it down on a separate book, and it's gonna help you. So state that large molecules are made from smaller molecules, limited to. Okay. Large molecules are made from smaller molecules, limited to starch and glycogen from glucose, cellulose from glucose, proteins from amino acids, fat from fatty acids, and glycerol. So I wanted to be safe for the O level or the IGCSE or whatever. So I wrote everything down. All the things that I knew about these biological molecules, I wrote them down. So about carbohydrates, it is a source of energy. Carbohydrates, it is a source of energy. To be on the safe side, just memorize all of these. Lipids, they are also a source of energy. But they are twice as much as carbohydrates. Okay, they're for the insulation. That's one thing. They are for the insulation, and they form structures such as cell membranes. Okay. Now, proteins. Proteins, they are for growth, tissue repair, and enzymes. Okay. Now, that is the first point done. Now, the next point is large molecules are made from smaller molecules. Okay, so that just means that there are, like, for proteins, many amino acids make a protein. So first we're going to go in order. So I'm going to first talk about carbohydrates. So it's for this. So for carbohydrates, there are three types, what made me understand what made me understand this topic was this. So I'm gonna do 3 arrows. I'm gonna make 3 arrows. One is monosaccharide. Oh, it's taking up way too much space. So monosaccharide. Disaccharide and polysaccharide. Okay. For monosaccharide, it's basically monosaccharide. It's the simplest form of carbohydrates. Simplest form. Okay, I'm gonna do it like this. So it's the simplest form of carbohydrates. Okay? And the second thing is that the examples of monosaccharides are, okay, so examples are fructose and glucose. Okay? Now for a disaccharide, there are, okay, so many monosaccharides make a, wait, no, two monosaccharides make a disaccharide. Two monosaccharides make a disaccharide. Now the examples of disaccharide are maltose and sucrose. Okay. Now polysaccharide, it's many polysaccharide. It's many monosaccharides. So poly means many, di means two, and mono means one. So simplest form is one disaccharide, poly is many. So many many monosaccharides joined together. So they make a polysaccharides, and the examples of polysaccharides are starch, glycogen, and cellulose. Right. Cellulose. Okay. Now I'm gonna draw a diagram for this, and it's going to show how a polysaccharide looks like. So okay, so these, oh never mind. Yeah, so these this is called a polysaccharide. The whole thing is called a polysaccharide. Okay. Now, if it were just one, oh, and these red things that connect the monosaccharide. So this one individual one is called a monosaccharide. Now, if it were two monosaccharides connected by these two are they're connected by chemical bonds. Chemical bonds. If there were two connected by chemical bonds, it would be called a disaccharide. Oh. Okay. So if it's two, it's called a disaccharide. If it's one and no chemical bond, it's called a monosaccharide. And if it's many, it's called a polysaccharide. Now, another thing you should know is that, I don't know if you should know it, but I'm just gonna say it anyways. So, monosaccharides and disaccharides, monosaccharide and disaccharide, they are readily soluble in water. They are readily soluble in water. Okay? While polysaccharides not readily soluble in water. Okay? Now that we finished cellulose from glucose. So basically that just shows that starch and glycogen. Wait, so this starch and glycogen starch and glycogen from glucose and cellulose from glucose just means that so glucose is obviously a monosaccharide. Okay? Monosaccharide. Okay? And starch and glycogen and cellulose are polysaccharides. They are polysaccharides. So it's obvious that polysaccharide is made of multiple or many monosaccharides. Basically, starch and glycogen are polysaccharides, and they are made of glucose, which is a monosaccharide. So one polysaccharide is made up of many monosaccharides. So starch, glycogen, and cellulose are made of glucose. Remove this. Yeah, so I didn't finish this part. I will do that in the next video.